Some companies, they just define an era, but a very, very select few, they define multiple. Today, we are diving into the story of one of those companies, a journey filled with audacious bets, total crushing dominance, a near-fatal stumble, and honestly, one of the greatest corporate comebacks in history. This is the epic story of Microsoft.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it now, but the idea of a computer in every single home, that was pure science fiction once. And this quote, it just perfectly captures the moment that dream started to become real. It wasn't in some giant sterile corporate lab. Nope, it was in a small office with two young guys who wrote a piece of code that would literally change the world.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to trace that entire journey. We'll see how that little spark of code exploded into a global empire, how that empire almost crumbled under its own weight, and how it was reborn for a completely new age of technology.
All right, let's wind the clock all the way back. We're talking about the 1970s. Computers were these enormous, room-sized machines. But two friends, a young Bill Gates and Paul Allen, they saw something completely different on the horizon.
And you have to understand just how wild this idea was at the time. The entire industry, everyone, was focused on bigger, faster hardware. Gates and Allen made this totally counterintuitive bet, that the future wasn't about the box itself, but about the brains inside it, the software.
Talk about a bold move, right? This was a total bluff. They saw this new computer, the Altair 8800, on the cover of a magazine, and they just cold-called the manufacturer, claiming they had a programming language ready for it. The thing is, they didn't. They had nothing. They then had to work like crazy for weeks to actually build the thing, and, unbelievably, it worked. Just like that, Microsoft was born.
Okay, and this is the moment that changes absolutely everything. IBM, the undisputed titan of the industry, needed an operating system for its brand new personal computer. And who did they go to? This tiny, basically unknown company. This was Microsoft's shot at the big time.
So here's where the real genius comes in. IBM's plan was simple. They just wanted to buy the software. One and done, a single payment. But Bill Gates proposed something else, something that would change the entire industry, a license. This meant Microsoft kept ownership of the code, but more importantly, it meant they'd get a small fee for every single PC that IBM and its partners sold. It was an act of incredible foresight.
And get this is the craziest part. Microsoft didn't even have an operating system to license to them. So what did they do? They went out and bought one from another company. It was literally called QDOS, for Quick and Dirty Operating System, for just $50,000. They cleaned it up a bit, slapped the name MS-DOS on it, and licensed it to IBM. That 50 grand investment? Well, it would become the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar empire.
So that licensing deal? That was the rocket fuel. With MS-DOS now on millions and millions of computers, Microsoft was in the perfect spot to build the next layer of our digital world. They were ready to build an empire.
Before 1995, software was, well, let's be honest, it was for nerds and office workers. It wasn't exactly cool. But Microsoft was about to launch something that would completely shatter that perception and turn a product launch into a massive global event.
And this is exactly why it was such a game changer. Windows 95 made computers friendly. It made them approachable for everyone. The start menu, the taskbar, these things seem so obvious now, but they were revolutionary back then. It made the PC a real consumer device for the very first time.
Just let that sink in for a second. People were lining up at midnight, not for a concert, not for a movie, but for software. Microsoft had done it. They had put a PC on every desk and in every home, and Windows was the face of it all. They weren't just a company anymore. They were a cultural force of nature.
But, absolute dominance often has a dark side. The very same aggression that built Microsoft's empire would soon become its greatest weakness, leading them into a period that many now call their lost decade.
So the internet is absolutely exploding, right? And this company, Netscape, is winning the browser war. Microsoft's response? To bundle their own browser, Internet Explorer, into Windows for free. It totally crushed Netscape, but it also brought the full force of the US government down on them for being anti-competitive. That lawsuit was a long, brutal, and very public fight that really damaged the company's reputation. And that lawsuit really marked the beginning of a long, difficult period. The company culture, which used to be so scrappy and innovative, it became all about protecting the Windows monopoly. It created these internal wars between divisions, and it just choked out new ideas. Sure, they had some bright spots, like the Xbox, but their biggest failure was missing mobile. When Apple launched the iPhone in 2007, Microsoft basically laughed it off. They completely whiffed on the next great platform shift, and it cost them their crown as the undisputed king of tech.
So by 2014, the company was really at a crossroads. It needed a fundamental top-to-bottom change, a complete reboot of its entire culture and strategy.
Yeah, this was pretty much the consensus. Microsoft was the past. They were your dad's tech company. The future, that belonged to Google, Apple, and Amazon. Microsoft was seen as this legacy company just slowly fading away.
And that's a huge question, right? How do you turn a ship that massive? It seems almost impossible. Well, the answer came with a new CEO, Satya Nadella, who showed up with a radically different game plan. Now, what's so fascinating here is that every single one of these points was the exact opposite of the old Microsoft. Instead of fighting their competitors, they started partnering with them. Instead of locking all their software to Windows, they put it everywhere, even on iPhones. And most importantly, they went all in on cloud computing with Azure, betting the entire future of the company on a whole new battlefield.
And that huge pivot into the cloud, well, it set the stage for Microsoft's next, and maybe its most surprising act yet. They were about to catch the next great technological wave, artificial intelligence.
Their AI playbook was just so methodical and clear. First, they made a massive early bet on a small research lab called OpenAI. Then they used their cloud platform, Azure, to build the supercomputing power that AI needs to even exist. And finally, they started weaving that AI, which we now know as Copilot, into every single product they make, from Windows to Word and beyond. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from the PC to the cloud and now to AI, you see this company that has somehow managed to reinvent itself for each major era of technology. They didn't just survive these massive shifts, they figured out how to lead them. It's an absolutely incredible story of resilience.
And that really is the ultimate question, isn't it? Microsoft has pulled off one of the most remarkable second acts in business history, but the pace of change in tech is only getting faster. Their story proves that even the biggest giants can stumble, and that survival really depends on the courage to reboot, to rethink, and to completely reinvent yourself. The only question is, can they do it again?